All right. I think we are live. Welcome. Welcome to Life Indeed, the podcast where we discuss the life the way it is not. So, welcome everybody. I'm not sure whether you all can see me on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you can see me and hear me, so I would want you to just say hi to me so that I can understand that yes, this live is going live actually. In the meanwhile, I would also like to check about on my cell phone whether it is, yeah, it seems pretty much okay. It seems we are live. Hi Shivan. Hi everyone. Hello everyone who is joining. So hi Ahmad. Hi Christina. Hi Piyush. So guys, before I quickly start, I would like to give you a little bit of background about this podcast, why we started this podcast, and how was our journey for these 12 episode, because this is going to be our 12th episode. And just to give you a little bit about background today, to all the viewers, my co-host is not with me, so I'm going to conduct this podcast with myself. And because he's not feeling well, he's and he doctor has advised him to take some rest. So I'm sure it is going to be the very interesting conversation because of the guest that I have today on our show. So just to give you a little bit about the background of this podcast. So as we all know that we live a certain kind of life, like when we are kid, we go to school, then we go to college, and then we you know if we put our efforts to basically get a job, and that we get into 9 to 5 job, and then we basically have a kind of lifestyle that we always live. So as we all know that this is a very stereotypical, and I would say it's a good life, but there are a lot of things which is beyond this normal life bubble. And we as an individual experience a lot of things in our life. We go through a lot of struggles. We at times we hit rock bottoms, so we learn a lot of those experience, but we hardly share those experience with anyone. And so me and my co-host Piyush have had this vision that we would not only share our experience and learning with the society, so that other people can also learn from our experience, but we will also invite people from society from all across the globe, and various people who have learned something hard way, who has a story, so that they can also come on this platform and share their story, and more people can learn from each other. So that was a basically an intent to start this podcast. So today, in continuation, I'm really excited and happy to welcome one of my friend who is from US. His name is Kevin Ward. He is basically a people builder. He claimed to be a people builder, and today we would definitely like to hear from him directly that what does he do to basically build the people. What are his work. How does he coach people. And today is going to be the day when you can ask him questions live. I think, when it comes to finding someone's potential, you have to do a lot of inner work. And today on this podcast, I'm pretty sure that Kevin is going to talk about a lot of things which can help you to identify your true potential. And I know him from a long time. So, without a further ado, I am going to bring on the show. Welcome, Kevin. How are you doing?
Hello, Tassif. I am doing well, thank you, and I'm really honored to get to be here today with you, and look forward to just having some good conversation about life and experiencing it. So here we go.
Absolutely delighted, Kevin, to have you here today. And, more because, up to now, this is our 12th episode. I wish my co-host Piyush was here because we basically share a lot of energy, and we do really well when it comes to hosting a podcast. But unfortunately, he's not here. But he's the one who gave me encouragement that go on, show must go on.
Mm,
So I thought that why not go ahead and continue with this, because last week we had to cancel because of his health. So of course, today, as we are joined by you, so today we are going to discuss about the life experience, and it is as we, as I always say that this is going to be an interactive discussion. We don't take it as an interview because it's all about making the most out of the discussion and putting it across to people so that they can learn, because our audience is the people. Ultimately, if they can get benefit out of our discussion, I think that will meet our purpose. So I just like to thanks a lot to you for accepting our invitation and actually adjusting your busy schedule for this show. So really thankful. And once again, before I start and get into the question mode and discussion mode, I would like to thank to all the viewers and
mm.
everyone who is joined on LinkedIn and YouTube and all across social media platform. Thanks, Sri Devi. She's one of my best friend. Shivanshu, Nandan, Zihad, Hamad Siddiqui, and a lot of other people. I think my co-host Piyush has also said that he would be listening to. He was kind enough to say that he would be live and listening to us. So thank you everyone who has joined us. Just stay tuned because today we are going to have a brilliant discussion around life, around how can you find your true potential, because Kevin has a speciality in terms of helping people to find their true potential. So, without a further ado, Kevin, I think let's start the discussion. So, I just wanted to understand. So, I know for a fact that I have been connected with you for like almost 1.5 years. So, we have been interacting on each other's content as well.
Yep.
And I know for a fact that you very passionately add a lot of value to people's post and engage very passionately, and which looks very interesting, because with every post that you make there is something to learn out of that. So if somebody can basically learn out of one post, then somebody can imagine that how much can somebody learn today on this 1 hour live session. So the first thing which is intriguing me today is, as you say that you're a people builder. So I would like to understand that how do you basically build people? What is that? What is something that somebody has? If somebody has to come to you and say that I want to explore life, or I want to, identify my true potential, because that is the most significant thing that people are working on, and it is one of the hardest thing, if you would agree with me, because soul searching and finding your true self is one of the hardest thing. So how do you basically do all these things? How do you conduct all these things?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, helping find people's potential is my vision. Okay, that sums up what I'm about. Doesn't matter what role I am in. That's what I'm about. And uh, and you're correct. It is a challenge to really understand ourselves. We come closer to understanding a lot of other things and a lot of other people, but we quite often miss ourselves. So, uh,
Agree.
what I suggest is a good starting point. Is part of the challenge that I issue to wisdom seekers when I started the podcast, and that was a 40-day challenge. And that
Mm-hmm.
challenge is to do this. One, part of the reason we don't know ourselves is we're inundated with noise. Okay. We
Hmm.
get hit from every side. Some of it we cannot do anything about, but a lot of it we can. And so I think
Absolutely.
we have to make a conscious effort to disconnect from as much of the noise as possible, especially early when we're trying to really uh, discover ourselves, our potential, and all that. And then when we do that, disconnecting is fine. But if that's all we do, then all we're going to do is sit around and think a lot, and and that's okay, I guess. But after a point, it doesn't accomplish much. So the next step is to be very intentional to observe. Okay, and so often a lot of the noise we deal with is things that we can't control, we can't
Hmm.
influence, but yet it takes up so
Absolutely.
much of space in our mind and our emotions. And so once we start observing, we need to look at our life around us. Okay,
Hmm.
rather than, and I don't want to sound callous because I have a heart for anyone anywhere, but for the this part of what we do, we need to start observing where we live, okay, where we work,
Hmm.
who we associate with, and begin to get insight and understanding there. And but
Hmm.
the only way to do it effectively is if we don't have all this other stuff in our ear and in our eyes that distract us. So once we go from disconnecting, then we will move to the observation phase. And at that point, the goal we have is to then be intentional in what I call seeking wisdom. Hey, and what we
Hmm.
do too much of is we gain a lot of knowledge, and we even, by default get experiences, which is fine. But what we forget, and I was even surprised that I did a poll on LinkedIn, and there was, I
Hmm.
believe, about 20% of people that said wisdom wasn't important. And I thought, wow, uh, that's remarkable.
That's that's
Um,
insane.
yeah. And so the third part is I try to get people to step back. Once you begin observing, then try to understand what you're observing from a wise perspective. And the big thing about
Absolutely.
wisdom is it changes our perspective. In my estimation,
Absolutely.
yeah, true wisdom comes from seeing things outside of ourselves. And for me, as a faith person, my goal all the time is to not only see it outside of myself, but to see people, see life, see circumstances from God's
Hmm.
perspective, because He created me and He
Absolutely. God is
designed
a true
me.
creator.
Yes. And so once I began doing that, my responses become different. So that's the starting point. Now, there's one of the things I'm in the process of doing is to roll out a course on finding our potential. And it's
So I
going
think,
to be,
Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt you at the moment. I just wanted to interject
sure,
one thing and
sure.
reiterate what you basically said. So I think the first step to finding your true potential and become more self-aware is to let go, disconnecting
Hmm.
from all the things, all the the chatters, the something called auto suggestions and hetero suggestions. So we have to disconnect from all them first. So letting go, unlearning the things which we already have learned, which may not be relevant for our potential or relevant for our mindset. And the second step, then try to find out and seek wisdom.
Right.
So I definitely, I mean, I love your definition of wisdom. And I have learned from one of my mentor that wisdom is, knowledge is knowing, basically knowing what you know, but wisdom is knowing what you what you don't have to do. So that is that is how powerful the wisdom is. I'm not sure how your poll has indicated 20% of the people said that wisdom wisdom is not even required. It absolutely comes from your experience, and as you rightly said, that not only with your experience but seeking out, in the larger world and learning
Hmm.
from everybody's experience. That's how you become more, full of wisdom. So I absolutely
Sure.
understand. I think it's a very step-by-step journey that you're explaining, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. And I would like to hear more how you basically complete that.
Oh, that's quite all right. I always like to approach and hear others' perspectives because that helps me learn. Uh, part of being a wisdom seeker is I look to learn something new every day. It may be a little something, it may be a big something. And so the other parts of learning our potential is we have, in my estimation, there's a lot of opinions and mine is just one, but we are made up of three parts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that concept becomes very important. And it's interesting as I learn and grow. The number three is it comes up a lot in a lot of ways as we really dig in to life and who we are. But the three parts that we're made up of is a body, and that's the part we all mostly deal with because we have
Absolutely.
to. Yeah, and everybody's looking at us and quite often has an opinion about it, whether it's good or bad. So we focus on that, but we lose
That's the
sight of
most
the
visible
two.
part.
Yeah, it's easy to address because we see it. The
Absolutely.
other two parts get lost, I'm afraid. The second part is our soul. Okay, that's the
Absolutely.
housing of our mind, will, and emotions. Fortunately, we as a culture have begun to consider the effect of mind, will, and emotions. For a long time, even that was kind of taboo. If you were emotionally troubled or mentally troubled, you were looked down on, and that's unfortunate because it is a part of who we are. And then the
Absolutely.
third part is our spirit. And that
Hmm.
is the most neglected part in our culture today
Hmm.
because we have somehow made acknowledging our spirit or living with our spirit to be illogical or unscientific, or I don't know, different
Hmm.
people, different ways. But when we can grasp that concept, then the second concept that is critical is that, and again, these are my ways of framing it. And it's not this is the magical answer way to frame it, but it's a way to understand. And that
Absolutely.
is,
We are made up of mind, body, and spirit.
yeah. And then the other part is that when we are considering who we are and our potential, I think there are three major components to consider there. One is design, okay, because
Hmm.
I believe in a creator. I believe that I have and everyone has a design, and
Absolutely.
some of it we share, such as helping each other. That to me is a
Hmm.
universal design that everybody shares. There are
Right.
other qualities that are unique, talents, gifts, personalities, all of these things are unique. So we begin to dig into design and find out what that looks like. And that's an adventure. That is a journey. The good news is that people can help us
Indeed.
through the journey. I know that over the years that I've had so many people that I'm grateful for building into my life and helping me find design. The second part of that is our purpose. We there have been volumes of books written on purpose. Purpose driven
Yeah.
life, and so each of us has a purpose, and design is about who we are. Purpose is about what we do.
What we do.
Right.
Definitely.
Uh, there are other people out there that help Others find potential, no doubt, and they're probably very good at it. It's just how they approach it is going to
Hmm.
probably be unique to them, which is great. Um,
Absolutely.
so the third part, and this is we uh, get into a priority challenge because the third part is essential, and that's our passion.
Hmm.
And what I find culturally now is it's become very popular is
It's
to
very
say,
popular these days. Yeah.
yeah, do what you feel passionate about. There is a place for that without a doubt. But if that's all you look at, you're going to potentially get misdirected because our passions,
Hmm.
our emotions can be driven by other things, some good,
Definitely.
some bad. So those are just some of the building block pieces that I look at to help people consider
Hmm.
as they want to go on this journey and find out their potential. So I hope that helps with
I
some
think
basic
it
principles.
is absolutely. I mean, personally, I have understood design, purpose, and passion. I think so. Just to reiterate to our audience, so design is creator has created you. You are yourself a design, and a lot of things like as you mentioned, that helping others. We have talent. We make a lot of collaboration and make a contribution. That's a part of our design. Then we have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we do. That's the higher purpose. That is the purpose of your life, because everything ultimately aligns to that purpose. No matter what activity you do in your life, those activities aligns to your purpose. And finally, your passion. I think it's a beautiful design that you have created and come up with, Kevin, and I'm pretty sure that people who are listening must be understanding the importance of self-awareness. Faguni is one of our friend who just joined, and she also advocate about finding your true self, and how people should get transformed. So Faguni, really appreciate you coming and commenting. And so Kevin, so thank you so much that you have spoke about at length what you do and how you basically help people to transform their life, identify their true potential, help them achieve you know uh, help them achieve more so that they become more aware about themselves. So I just wanted to understand, because from our podcast perspective, we always talk about certain life experiences. So you know did you have any experience in your life right from your childhood up to now which actually taught you some lesson? Talk about just two experience quickly. So we would like to understand that what were those experiences and what did you learn out of those experiences?
Well, the one that's obvious to me, and it is we have those defining moments in life, and for
Absolutely.
me, it had to do with a spiritual journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I began my real spiritual journey as a young teenager, and
Mm-hmm.
it was actually my brother who
Okay.
was a catalyst in that regard. But at 13, I began to come to terms with the spiritual component of who I am. Up to that
Okay.
point, I'm just a kid rocking along, trying to
Mm.
be in life. And at that point, I started addressing the concept of my spirit as much as I understood it as a 13-year-old, mind you.
Oh, so
Uh,
you basically are working on this from your childhood, I can say.
well, that was, again, I have to talk about that as a defining moment because up
Hmm.
until that point, I'm like a lot of people, I'm mostly focused on my
So
body
it's
and
all about
whatever.
connecting the dots, going
Yeah,
backward and connecting the dots.
right. And even some of the mental emotional stuff is, it's out there. Teenagers don't, as we've learned that at that age, our brains are still mush. And
Hmm.
And so, but what happened is when I began to understand and address my needs spiritually, which for me,
Hmm.
and I don't want to offend anyone, but it came to a point of needing to decide to deal with my spiritual condition, which
Hmm.
in my tenets of faith, we all have a spiritual problem in that we're born unable to live spiritually the way we should. And so at
Hmm.
that point, I made a decision to follow Christ, Jesus Christ,
Hmm.
and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. It
Wow.
didn't make me perfect.
Hmm.
It, in fact, far from it. And part of that
But
understanding
you
was
connected to the
how,
higher power.
yeah, and part of it was understanding how imperfect I am. That was a real revelation. So uh, at 13, I made a decision, the best I understood it, to receive a gift, a very great gift from our Creator of the redemption through His Son. So
Hmm.
if you want to look at, for me in my life, that at that point was just a major uh, defining moment.
I think I can pretty much relate to it because it's all about connecting to your soul. And then, I have spoken to a lot of my friends who are into personal development space. They talk about meditation. They talk
Mm-hmm,
about giving a me time to yourself, at least half an hour to 1 hour in entire 24 hours in a day,
mm-hmm,
so that you can actually connect to your soul. And when you meditate, and when you actually offer prayers, no matter in the
mm-hmm,
form of, for example, if I'm Muslim, I offer namaz, salah
mm-hmm,
5 times a day. you know and different people in different religion have different ways to pray. And when you do that, you actually connect to yourself as well as the higher power.
mm-hmm,
And that's where you actually start connecting with the intelligence, the infinite intelligence, and you are able to tap to the enormous potential that everybody has into their subconscious mind. So I think everybody has that experience, and you shared a very good example, because it is very important to understand from the childhood, going back there in the memory lane and understanding where it is actually coming from, what was the source of that inspiration which
mm-hmm.
actually inspired you to go on to this journey. So I think it's a brilliant example, and people are commenting on this, and Faguni is saying that Kevin Ward is a super knowledgeable, a fan of his wisdom. So thanks a
Thank you,
lot, Faguni.
Falguni. I appreciate that. Falguni is a great friend on LinkedIn, and so thank you.
And I recently had a podcast with her, and I knew more about her. So she's a brilliant folk. And I have my co-host. He's very kind, and he's he, though he could not join host the show today, but he is watching us, and he's also saying that thanks for sharing this such an amazing wisdom. So thank you so much, Kevin. And so you shared about your experience. So Kevin, I think it's a question that a lot of people hesitate to answer, but I'm pretty sure that you would have an answer to this. So I just
Okay.
wanted to understand that, did you face any kind of struggle in your life, any failure that you had which actually taught you a absolutely different perspective of life, and you said, wow, this was something that was required for me, but I was hesitating to this. So did you have any such kind of experience, any sort of experience which actually you were not expecting, but that happened, but that changed you completely?
A couple of those. Of course, the list of my failures would be long and it would take a long time, but there are a couple of major points in life that I have experienced failure and had to grow through them. Um, let's see. Uh, Actually, there are three that come to mind. We'll start with one and see how that goes. One is,
Hmm.
and this is something I've written an article about, is later
Hmm.
after I was married, had actually had a child at this point, and began
Hmm.
to struggle with relational failings at work. Um,
Hmm.
Generally, I can get along with people really well because I
Hmm.
make a conscious effort for it. But there were some people that I had to live with and deal with, especially at work, that, and then this one particular person, because I worked with him regularly, we would get in a room
Okay.
together and
Hmm.
within minutes, we were debating something. And
Oh.
not generally in an agreeable fashion. We were
Hmm.
certain that each other were wrong, and so At this point, I had started my journey spiritually, so I was looking at ways to grow and learn. So I'd already started that part, and the life circumstances forced me to address this one. And at first,
Hmm.
my thought was, well, if this guy would just listen, everything would be fine. And what I found out, though, as I explored and without really knowing, even doing the disconnect observe process, realized that the problem was not him. The problem was me.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was related to an emotional wound. And I am of the
Hmm.
opinion that everybody, I don't care who you are, have emotional wounds. And
Hmm.
so I realized I had this emotional wound, and I began to dig in and try to understand it and address it. Fortunately, I had some people in my life that helped me and mentored me. And the short version is the wound that I experienced was with my father, which for guys, that's
Hmm.
a common problem. And so my father was alive, so I was blessed to be able to approach him and address it on some level. And
Hmm.
that that struggle, that failing, then turned into starting a healing process that affected me greatly because that emotional wound was keeping me from operating the way I was designed to. It was short circuiting who
Hmm.
I was. And so that was a start of a process. And, even today
Hmm.
at moments, I'll struggle with it. Like, but at least now it doesn't drive and control who I am.
And I think that's why a lot of people, a lot of wise people, I would say, they say that you don't have to master your emotions, you have to manage your emotions.
Right.
Because nobody can master the emotions, because we are social animal. We have emotions, and we in an extreme conditions have, whenever we are very happy or whenever we are very sad, we tend to feel those emotions, and it can never happen that we will master them, and we will become a very simple and plain in all kind of situations. So I can very much understand from your point of view that, you know it a lot of time it happens with us, in our home as well, with our family members,
Mhm.
that, we when we are talking to each other, and we get into arguments, and we try to win the argument, we try to, prove ourselves to be superior over others, you know
Mhm.
and it is not something that other people are trying to challenge. As you rightly mentioned, it is because of the things that we already hold, that we already
Mhm.
possess in ourselves. And I think, the kind of discussion that we're having, and the how you work on the people, if people are able to understand their true potential, and, understand how their emotions are in those right moment, and become an objective observer, then I think a lot of things can be done. We cannot become perfect, but we can at least manage the emotions into crucial situations. So I think, it was really good, Kevin, and it was a wonderful example, and I'm sure people would have learned out of it, because that is the purpose of our podcast. Because when somebody comes and share about their life experience,
Mhm.
how did they fail in life, what was this background story, and then how did they overcome that challenge, and that is something really important, powerful, because we don't even realize how people are listening and watching to us, and can it can change somebody's life. So really, really powerful example, Kevin. So Kevin, these days, I mean, as you rightly mentioned when you started, that, passion is very much talked topic, much hyped these days, and there are different ways to identify passion. So one of your third, basically step is that you work on people to identify the passion. So
Mhm.
because of the fact that a lot of people talk about do what you love, at times I also make videos, do what you love, and I practically do a lot of things what I truly love, and even a lot of people in my networks. So the question remains the same: how can they arrive to find their passion? So what would you advise a college student or a person who is working into 9 to 5? Somebody might be confused, they are into 9 to 5, they want to come out of that bubble, but they don't know how to do that because they don't know what is their passion, they don't know what to do. So what would be your advice?
I start with when I talk with someone trying to understand, I start with a very simple question, and that is, when you are not under the direction of an outside influence, okay, you have time that is
Hmm.
at your discretion. What do you do? It's a very simple question, because
Hmm.
it's those moments when we choose what we do with our time, because our time is the most precious asset or
Hmm.
commodity we have. How we choose to use it when we are left to our own devices, it gives an indication of what's our passion. Quite often, we see it in
Hmm.
when we talk about hobbies or whatever. It that goes
Hmm.
that if you can answer that question honestly, you have at least a glimpse into what your passion's about.
Absolutely. And I think it's a brilliant question because, you know, in fact, yesterday I shared a post on LinkedIn that, when nobody is watching you, who you are, when nobody is watching you, actually, that is your actuality. And you rightly
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that when nobody is around you, you are alone. What you do with your time, how you spend your time, determines what you're actually passionate about. What a wonderful question to ask to self. So, all of the people who must be listening to us, just ask to yourself, as Kevin rightly advised, that whenever you are alone, you don't have anybody around, just ask yourself what you're doing. Just observe yourself, and whatever you are doing, you can definitely relate that thing with what you're passionate about. So I think it's a brilliant answer. And I just want to give a little shout out to my fellow people and my brilliant community members and friends. Vikas is saying, great to watch two of my favorite folks reach in, to be able to reach out, to reach higher. I think that's life. And I can confidently say that Vikas is someone who is a word, you know he has a he's a great wisdom in terms of writing, and I always get mesmerized by his writing. So thank you so much, Vikas, for actually putting a beautiful comment and appreciating what we are doing today. And another person is Subra. Great conversation. Thank you so much, Subra. Really appreciate you joining us and on this show. So so far, I would like to do a little bit of recap, Kevin. We talked
If you
about
don't
design,
mind,
purpose, and passion. Yeah,
I just want to say hi to Vicus, because he and I have been connected for a while, and I always enjoy his comments. And yes, you're right; it's always insightful. So thanks.
absolutely. And I think Vikas was the one who actually helped me to connect with a lot of awesome people on LinkedIn, and he's a very good friend of mine. So thanks, Vikas, once again. Yeah, so I was just wanted to do a little bit of recap. So what we discussed today, just to people who have just joined, may get a little bit of glimpse as what we talked about. So we started with experience of Kevin, and then Kevin talked about his model of how he basically helped people to found their true potential, like starting with design, the creation, and then finding the purpose, and finally is the finding the passion. And he also talk about one of the very significant question, how somebody can ask to themselves that what they're doing with their time when they're alone, to actually identifying the passion. It's one of the very relevant question to ask. And he also talked about one of his failure, and what he learned basically out of that failure. So thank you so much, Kevin. And Vikas is again saying he's putting out some comments. So we would like to take the questions as well at the end of this show. We have allotted 10 minutes for only questions of people who have questions for Kevin, and if for me, we would definitely like to answer. So
Of
we would
course, yes,
move on. We would move on to another couple of questions, Kevin, and then we would like to take the question from the audience.
sure.
So Kevin, I'm very thankful. I feel thankful that I've been connected with you for a long time, and in spite of you know we had to adjust the schedule a couple of times, but you have been very humble and managing things. And you were supposed to come next week, but you adjusted because somebody who was supposed to come on the show, again, due to some COVID situations, uh, you know she had issues. So I'm really thankful that you joined today and shared these wisdom nuggets. I just get a lot of questions from the audience, about basically, if somebody has to start their self development journey. For example, if you take my example, I started it in 2019 early. I would not say that I started it, you know uh, with full potential, but I had a little bit of clue that what I need to do to basically utilizing my time in a better way. Because
Hmm.
earlier on, I used to watch a lot of I would not say movies, but I used to watch a lot of entertainment stuff. But I thought
Hmm.
that why not to go ahead and replace it with something useful, which is
Hmm.
meaningful in a life, and I would learn something. That's how basically I joined LinkedIn. I started learning people, like people from you, likes of you, and a lot of other people I have been learning. And then I understood that it is very important to read books, and then I understood that it is very important to, as you rightly mentioned, to be in the company of like-minded people and people who have a growth mindset, because ultimately your company talks everything about you. So that forms everything around you, and that's how you basically grow. But I want to understand from you that if somebody wants to start the personal development journey, they want to become the better version of themselves, so what would you advise to that person?
Um, Again, back to observing. Okay, observe yourself. And one of the things that we try to do, but we do it without intention, is we are quite often seeking something we're missing. Okay, we're trying to fill a
Hmm.
void, and take time to understand what that is. And what I encourage uh, is to uh, not only observe for yourself, but ask others that you trust and respect what they observe. Part
Hmm.
of our problem sometimes is we're blind to ourselves. We have blind spots, is the
Absolutely.
term I use. And a great thing is to find some people that we will listen to, give them permission to say even things that may not feel good, but give
Hmm.
them permission to tell us those things. And
Hmm.
once we begin to see those blind spots and begin to understand what we are missing,
Hmm.
we can then become intentional to find out ways to fill that void. So I really
Hmm.
would encourage that process as part of the observation piece.
Hmm. I think it's one of the very critical thing to do, because even if you start or embark upon the journey of personal development, you need to become an objective observer. You need to observe things around you, within you. So I think it's a brilliant answer. Thank you so much, Kevin. And my co-host Piyush is asking that any suggested books on passion. I'm sure you would have
Wow.
read a lot of books.
I've read a number, of course, and again, this is my bent, but I share with people that there is so much wisdom to be found in the Bible. Okay. Whether
Hmm.
you necessarily agree with the tenets of faith in there, it is a historical writing with so much insight into people, including passion.
Hmm.
When you look at the Old Testament of the Bible and look at the interactions of people in their lives and how they connected and the passions involved, it is very insightful. Um, Another
Hmm.
book in
Hmm.
regards for me, helped me begin to identify that it's an older book, and but I believe it's still available.
Hmm.
It's by a guy named Josh McDowell, and
Hmm.
great
Okay.
writer. and it's called His Image, My Image. Okay, and it's talking about
His
design.
image and my image. Okay.
His image, my image. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is that as
Okay.
we dig into who we're designed and created to be, that will include the passion part. And it will help us align our
Hmm.
passion with our design so that we're not driven by passion that's been short circuited, but it's real passion based on who we've been
Mm-hmm.
created.
Hmm. I think it's a really good. So what was the name of the book? It was His Image and My Image, right?
His image, comma, my image. And I think subtitle is
His
something
image
like
and my image.
nothing more, nothing less. The idea is
So
that
nothing more,
we
nothing
want
less.
to tap into who we're designed to be. And the other part of it,
So
and this is
we,
a
yeah.
challenge, is that not only
Hmm.
understanding who we're designed, but we've got to accept. See, a lot of people I observe even have insight into their design, but they don't like it.
Hmm.
They want to resist it because
Hmm.
it doesn't fit somebody's norm or some idea of success. And so, again, trying to get into wisdom, one of the other common designs we have is to love other people. Okay, and the way the Bible says it is
Absolutely.
love your neighbor as yourself. And a lot of times we get caught up in the love your neighbor part,
Hmm.
which is great, but there are two parts to that direction, that guidance, that wisdom, and we quite often overlook the first part. And I believe that by design, the reality is until we can understand and accept ourselves, love who we've
Hmm.
been made to be, we will find it hard to love other people. And because when
Hmm.
we don't love who we're created to be, most of the
Hmm.
time we spend interacting, we do so from a defensive posture because we're scared. We don't want to
Hmm.
be found out, or
Hmm.
we feel like that somebody says something. They may just be making a statement, but all of a sudden it's a personal attack.
Hmm. I absolutely understand. I think there is a lot of commonality between all the religious books. You're talking about, Bible, then
Mm-hmm,
we basically recite Quran, and then we have a
mm-hmm,
Gita. So I think these books have those spiritual content. If somebody, and but the irony is most of the people, they are not never interested in those religious books, but there is a lot of wisdom and there is a lot of spiritual content, lying and hiding there. And if we truly explore those books, and I'm sure that we would not have to go here and there and purchase other books as well. So I think it's, and you also mentioned about that self law is supreme. Self law is very important, because ultimately if you don't love yourself, if you are yourself exhausted of self love, then how can you distribute or give love to others? So I can absolutely understand where are you coming from, and it's a brilliant answer. So thank you so
uh,
much again, once again, Kevin. I think it was an eye opener session, I would say, today, because you talked about the personal development. How can somebody start the personal development? By observing themselves and the environment around them. You also talked about how you can basically help people to find their true potential. You also talked about your life experience and let people understand and learn from you. It was an amazing conversation, I can say, Kevin. So we just now have a few minutes left to end this
okay.
conversation. So in this time, I would like to take the questions from the audience, because a lot of people are interacting with us today, and I can see that people who have joined here, they're really excited, and they're actually interacting with us. They're sharing their view as well. And Vikas has also shared that self development is much needed, interesting, ongoing, should never end. So tricky part is it begins from yourself, and you deserve it. You can have galore only when you explore. So I think, I often find Vikas very rhythmical because he always share those wisdom nuggets out of his experience. So his writing, as we know, that it's phenomenal. And Ajit is saying, "Good to see you, Tosi. We are doing amazing. Thank you so much, Ajit. I really appreciate you joining us." So, guys, I would encourage you, I would request you, if you have any questions on personal development, identifying your true potential, please utilize these 10 minutes or 5 minutes that we have left in the show today. And we would try our best to get the answer from Kevin today on the show itself. So, Kevin, if you don't just mind, I would just like to check the people on YouTube as well, because people have joined there as well. And I would like to see
Sure.
who all are there. So Jyoti has joined there. Thank you so much, Jyoti. A couple of other people hardly pronounce the name. So thanks a lot. So guys, just post your questions for Kevin. Piyush is saying that it was indeed a great conversation. Thanks a lot, Tasif and Kevin. We are equally missing you, Piyush, and I wish you could be here, but it is equally more important that you take rest and
Mm,
come back more stronger. I'm pretty sure, and I'm hoping that we would both together be sitting on the next show. So, and as we Kevin know that we were also having the conversation about the lot of misinterpretation and misreporting of the data which is being shown all across the world with
mhm.
respect to COVID. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone, and I can understand. I have a sympathy to all the people who are suffering, and I have sympathy to all the people who have their family members are in trouble,
Mm,
because we understand there are a lot of problems which are going in India with respect to medical facility not being there up to the mark. People are not getting oxygens, people are not getting the essential medical equipments, and a lot of people have died as well. That has been very unfortunate situation of the country, but the good part is that among all these crisis and disaster situations, there are a lot of people who are volunteering. Now people are just standing up and contributing to society. A lot of people are helping each other mentally, physically, financially, which is really encouraging. Because ultimately, up to a certain time, certain time, a government can help, but government cannot do everything. It is we people who have to stand up and support each other. So that is happening. And now I think we have a couple of questions. So Dr. Subra Mukherjee, she is one of my a really good friend in SAG community. She's saying that self love is important, but often we find it difficult. So could you talk a little more about it?
sure.
I think I can understand from her perspective that at times the self hate overpower the self love. And there are a lot of those situations and experience that we have in our life that when we meet adversities, the rock bottom, or the challenges in our life, and then we start cursing ourselves that why was I destined to this, or was it only meant for me. And a lot of self doubt comes, and in those situations, it is extremely difficult to basically say, okay, let it go, it really doesn't matter, time will heal everything. And then it is really difficult to say that. And self love is basically overridden by self hate, or maybe a self curse, whatever you want to say. So how can you basically you know make sure that you still love in all the situations, whoever you are, whatever you do, you just love yourself? How can you do that, Kevin?
Well, part of it is the back to observation. What are the, consider the narratives that we tell ourselves. Okay. Some that we pick up from family, some we pick up from outside the world, the people around us. And then some of it is narratives we create ourselves. And so, as
Hmm.
part of the observation process, consider the narratives. What do we tell ourselves? And then the other one, and this is such a key part, is when we're looking, except that one of the messages that we receive culturally, and now we're probably 3 generations into this, is that we're told that we can do anything we want if we just decide to do it. And I'm probably going to be a little
Hmm.
unpopular with this comment, but that's a lie. That's assuming
I think that's a big
everybody
lie.
is created with the same potential. And it's not true. And the example I share is I love music.
Hmm.
I would love to be able to play music on an instrument. But one of the things that I've learned is that I can study, I can read. I've been in choirs. Okay. I even joke that I was in a youth choir and it took 200 other people to drown out my singing. So it wasn't a problem. But as much as I enjoy, I have a passion for music. I love it, but it's not part of my design. And I had to finally say, it's
Hmm.
okay. It's not, some people say, well, if you
Hmm.
take enough lessons, blah. No, and it's okay because that doesn't make me any better or any worse. It's just who
Hmm.
God designed me to be. And so when we can start coming to terms with some of those things, we then can move to the step of self acceptance, self love. And by the way, self love is not a big ego trip. That's a bad place to go. And we have a lot of people that have, for lack of a better way of putting it, they have become very expert at self love and they don't have room to love anybody else. So please understand that's not my frame of reference on it.
Hmm. So I think there is a very minute difference between self-love and having a inflated version of ego and just a self-love. That should not be the case. I think you have really answered it well. And at times, when you were talking about music, you gave an example of the music that it was not your forte. You tried to understand it. I can also resonate, just to answer Subra's question. And I think it's a really good question at the right time because a lot of people are into extreme condition. They are having hard times because of this situation which is created around us. I know when I was a student, and I was about to do my job to support my family and myself, so I started to learning the programming language. I don't know, I mean, it was bubble created around me that programming language is very difficult, but I thought, why not go ahead and I put throw myself into it and then experience it basically. And I started it, and I found that I literally failed at that. I could not code. And very soon I realized that it was not for me, and I said to my
Mm,
teacher, I'm sorry, it is not for me. I literally accepted it, and I did not feel any issue into that, and I just moved on into learning something which I was passionate about. So I think it's a part of our life. We need to learn to let go, as we rightly started with the podcast with. This is a very powerful statement. It is very difficult, but when somebody who can manage to do this can try and stay positive and happy for a longer period of time. So I think Subra is thank you so much, Kevin and Tosi, for answering. I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful questions, and we would like to take a couple of more questions before we call it an end, because we just have 5 minutes left today, and I'm so sure Kevin would have a lot of commitments after this. So and it's I think it's a daytime there.
yes,
You're in California, right? Or
middle of the day. No, I'm East Coast. It's about lunchtime now.
oh, okay, okay. So we'll just wait another 2 minutes because we have just we are left with 2 minutes. In the meantime, I just want to thank again to all our viewers who have joined today. And it was very tough for me today to start the podcast and conduct it because my co-host was not there, and I was literally missing him. And but he was there to support us, and I'm pretty sure the discussion that we had today, he would have a lot of thing to add because he also is working on same thing. And again, thanks a lot everyone, all those people are from LinkedIn and YouTube who have joined and given their valuable time, and contributed a lot of things from their
Mm,
out of from their experience and asked wonderful questions. So really thankful to all of you. And the show will continue, and we will continue to basically invite people from various background, so that we could add more and more value. And I think the session today was one of the most significant session in terms of identifying your true potential, because this is a hot topic these days.
Hmm.
This is selling like a hotcake in the market because a lot of people wants to understand who they really are. So, and Kevin has been not only been successful, but he has extraordinarily has explained everything and along with his examples. So really, really wonderful and thankful to you, Kevin, for actually giving the time today. Precious 1 hour. So thanks a lot. And I think I think Piyush is saying you both are rocking, and Subra is saying beautifully explained. I'll just have a final look at YouTube audience if there are any questions
Okay.
that we would like to address before we call it an end. Okay, we don't have any questions on YouTube. I think you. So Kevin, I think we can end the conversation and end the live. Uh, I think we are done. So thanks a lot again for everybody who joined us, and looking forward to see you in our next episode with some other guest, and we would definitely would like to announce in advance. So thank you so much, Kevin. I'm just going to end the broadcast, and we would still be here for another